So, without further ado, these are the top 5 movies on Netflix that you should be watching this October. What's up, boils and ghouls? It is October, and we are trying to watch as many horror movies as we can as we head towards Halloween. Or if you're like me, you want to watch as many horror movies as you can all year round, and October's not really any different. But in case you are heading to Netflix and you're wondering which horror movies you need to check out, I'm here to break down the top 5 that you need to be watching. If you're looking for a complete list of my favorite Netflix horror movies and just my complete list of all the other streaming services, you can click this little thing up here, or you can just wait until the end of the video and I'll list all of the Netflix movies I think you should watch. The ones I'm going to be talking about today are ones that are not as easy to find on other streaming services. That's not to say that they're impossible to find, but when it comes to the major streaming services, Netflix is going to be your go-to place for them. So, without further ado, these are the top 5 movies on Netflix that you should be watching this October. The Strangers. So when The Strangers first came out in theaters, it didn't really make many waves. It was released at a time when Saw movies were the go-to horror movie franchise that people were interested in checking out. So when this movie came out, no one really paid attention to it. And then when it finally landed on home video, that's when more people started checking it out, getting freaked out by it, and understandably so. The movie stars Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman as a couple who might be breaking up because Scott Speedman's character proposes to Liv Tyler's character. She doesn't immediately say yes, so it's a bit tense, and they go to Scott's family's cabin, and after being there for a little while, they realize they're not completely alone. These strangers, these unidentified masked people, start showing up in the background of their house. A stranger shows up and knocks on the door asking, "Is Tamara home?" And that is very confusing for someone to do in the middle of the night at a remote cabin. And what follows, as you can imagine, is a terrifying experience where Liv and Scott are being hunted, taunted, tormented by these masked strangers. In the years since this movie's come out, it's become the seminal go-to example of home invasion horror done right. The strangers themselves look creepy as hell with their masks and the guy with the bag on his head. The whole time audiences are wondering, why are these people tormenting our protagonists? Who is Tamara? Was she home? Should she have been home? Are these people at the wrong house? All of that works, but I think what really sets the stage to make the movie work so well is the tension between our main characters and not knowing what the hell is going on with them, why they seem so tense. The foundation of tension is there from moment one, and then it only gets ratcheted up further and further. So it's kind of surprising that The Strangers wasn't a hit when it first came out, and it's only since become such a classic of this genre, but it is well deserved. If you haven't seen The Strangers, do check it out. The recent attempts at rebooting it with Rennie Harlin directing Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, starring Madeleine Petsch, they're not that great, and it just serves as a reminder of how good the original Strangers is. The Ritual. This is a Netflix-only exclusive, and it comes from David Bruckner. He worked on the VHS movies. He directed The Night House. He went on and did the 2022 reboot of Hellraiser. So this is one of his earlier efforts. The story follows a group of friends who want to reconnect by going on a hike through the wilderness. They are old friends, but you get the sense that they've had a bit of a falling out. They're not quite as close as they used to be. And the further they get into the forest, the more those tensions rise amongst them. You sort of understand why there's tension, but there's other parts of that tension that aren't entirely explained. That tension doesn't totally matter because shortly after they enter the woods, weird as hell stuff starts happening. We realize, and they realize, that they're entering a community with a strange ritual, as the title might imply, that results in a bizarre, monstrous entity emerging from the woods to terrorize and torment them. The plot of this movie might not necessarily be all that different from something like The Descent, In fact, some might say it is very similar to The Descent, but rather than underground albino humanoid beasts who no longer need their eyeballs, the ritual goes in a slightly different direction. It's really interesting. If you like The Descent, you'll definitely like the ritual. And even though I've already told you that there's a strange creature, a strange beast that emerges toward the end of the movie, me describing it doesn't even really convey just how cool and weird the actual design of this creature is. I didn't totally love David Bruckner's earlier films, but I think this was the movie that put me on the path of being much more invested in what he would do afterwards. And considering I really enjoyed what he did with The Night House and I appreciated what he did with Hellraiser, I think The Ritual is the standout movie. And if you liked The Night House, you liked The Descent, you liked Hellraiser, you liked VHS, then definitely check out The Ritual. I am the pretty thing that lives in the house. No, this movie isn't about me. Sorry to say. No. In fact, this movie comes from Osgood Perkins, who people are now much more familiar with because he did Longlegs, he did The Monkey, he's doing Keeper, which is coming out later this year. So he has a following now that he didn't have when this movie came out. The movie focuses on a nurse heading to take care of a former writer in their home in the remote countryside of Massachusetts. And after being there for a little while, she starts to realize that creepy, spooky, weird stuff is going on. It stars Ruth Wilson and it stars Bob Balaban and Lucy Boynton. Lots of people that genre fans will definitely appreciate seeing. I won't dive any further into the story because this movie is slowly paced. And it's evident that Osgood had done The Blackcoat's Daughter before this. That's another very deliberately paced movie. So if you like The Blackcoat's Daughter, definitely check this out. It's spooky. It takes place in a house, as implied by the title. There is a pretty thing in that house, but that pretty thing might be a ghost, might be something else. Really, who's to say? Point is, if you like Osgood Perkins, whether you liked The Monkey, you liked Longlegs, you like Blackcoat's Daughter, maybe you didn't even like any of those and you just want to see him do a more traditional haunted house movie, then I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is definitely worth checking out. The Sentinel. Similar to I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, The Sentinel is about strange things happening, except instead of a house, it's an entire apartment building. This is about a former model attempting to start a new chapter in her life by moving into a different part of town. She meets all sorts of strange, bizarre, eccentric characters in this apartment building. And at first, the audience is really just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. What is the threat of this movie? Why are these people so weird? Why is there a blind priest who lives on the top floor of this building? It's very reminiscent of something like Rosemary's Baby, where obviously Rosemary and Guy are dealing with the Castevets and just these other strange people who live in the building. However, since this is an apartment building, there's more people that live there. There's weirder things going on. And the direction that this movie goes by its finale, I don't want to give away, but it is weird as hell. Cobweb. Cobweb has the distinction of actually taking place on Halloween night. So if there's one of these movies I'd recommend watching to get you in the spirit of Halloween, it would be Cobweb. The movie focuses on a young boy who wants to go trick-or-treating, but his parents, played by Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, don't want him to go out on Halloween night. Instead, the little boy stays at home, and then weird things start happening. I can't even begin to describe all of the strange things that go on in this home. It feels a bit like Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs, in that this little boy is exploring his own home in which he feels like he is in someone else's territory. And the performances from Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr are fantastic. They really help sell the strangeness of the entire movie. Really, with Cobweb, the less said about the movie, the better. If you're like me, you're someone who can really suspend your disbelief of logic or physics or reality to just enjoy a good horror movie, Cobweb is definitely one of those movies. So if you're really looking to dive deep into the Halloween spirit, or even if you want to save a movie to watch closer to Halloween, I definitely recommend Cobweb. So, those are my picks for the 5 horror movies you need to be watching on Netflix this October that are harder to track down on other streaming platforms. If you watch to the end of this video, you'll see my complete list of horror movies that are Wolfman endorsed on Netflix right now. Some are available on other services, but they're definitely available on Netflix. And if you want to see my picks for what's available on other streaming services, then you can check this thing that's up here in this direction, and that'll link you to all of my picks for everything to watch on all of the major streaming platforms this October.